Hi, Mom.
Let's see if we can.
Screw up, you're still not here.
Still not here.
You're not there. You will agree with me.
Wonder when I'm going to show up.
Let's take a look.
Hey, well, I'm kind
Let's see my facial
of further
expression.
back today. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here. And I'll go right into the opening. Council, today I actually had decided I was going to do an opening that didn't have anything to do with COVID-19 in it. Because, well, honestly, I'm somewhat done with the whole thing. But because of the great news we got last week, I decided I would still do something about COVID-19. I want to do a positive story about the great news that we received last week. It wasn't necessarily like one big announcement, but there were just many small good moves in the reopening plan. I'd like to thank the residents of Steinbach and even of Manitoba, because it was through planning and good positive actions that Manitoba could get ahead of the coronavirus, flatten the curve as well as we did, and that we could move towards the reopening. During the shutdown, what bothered me the most was the impact it had on our economy. It bothered me to hear daily the sad news of businesses that were closing, employees that were being laid off, and every day it just seemed like there was another story of hardship in our business community. So that actually prompted something in an action, and Councillor Susan Penner and I, we got in contact with our chamber, and on April 1st, I believe, we met. Susan Penner, our Councillor Susan Penner, myself, and the chamber executive, we met online, and we talked about how could we advocate for our business community. So what ended up coming out of that was that we would ask businesses to tell their story of how it impacted, how COVID was impacting their business. And then because my deputy mayor he's so gifted with pen, we asked him to write a letter to our premier and some of the MLAs that had a lot of decision power. So what we did was we sent the letter from the city of Steinbach with a support letter from the chamber, and then all the stories of the businesses. And, you know, some of them, you know, they tugged at your heartstrings if you're sensitive to business. And we sent them off, I believe, on April 14th. And then we did the hardest thing that was possible, in my opinion. We waited, and we waited, and we waited. I remember, I think at the beginning of last week, talking with Councillor Susan Penner, and if we didn't get good news on Wednesday, we were going to do it all over again. But then on Wednesday, April 29th, the province announced its reopening plan. And I was very, very excited. It wasn't everything, but I felt it was a good start. And May 4th would be the official reopening day. And many businesses today have opened up, and some are in the process of opening. There is a lot of preparation that goes in because there are a lot of guidelines that they have to follow as far as distancing and sanitization and the amount of people out in their stores. So it'll take some businesses a few days to get going, but the good news is they're going to get going. And even with our city staff, they're working very diligently, very hard to reinstate and replace all the services that have been impacted by COVID, And even our city hall will be opening on Thursday to the public. It'll be all but limited, but it will be open. And that's a great move in the right direction. And the businesses that are working, they're working very hard to the guidelines as they are different for all sectors. After the reopening announcement, and well, since Monday, I've heard nothing but good stories of how business owners are getting back in it. They're excited. Some are busier than ever right now. And this makes, like, these positive stories just make me so glad. The highlight of my week is that I could finally go for a haircut. Never thought I would say that, but that you would miss something so simple as a haircut, but sure have missed it. Again, the reopening plan, it's not perfect. It's not everything, but it's a great start. And for that, I'm thankful. And I really want to publicly thank our Premier and the government of our province for having the foresight and seeing that it was time to reopen. Thank you. Okay, Council, we have the agenda in front of us. I'd like to have a motion to adopt. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments? No? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, Council, we have the minutes of April 21st, 2020, the regular council meeting. They start on page 1. Just looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
No.
Any further? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Okay, that'll take us, we're just a little bit past 7:35, so we'll go straight to the public hearings. We'll go to 6A, the Conditional Use CU-2020-01. This refers to number 9, PTH 52 West. It's on page 3 of your package. At this time, we will close the council meeting and open the public hearing. Mr. Warkentine, would you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, this is application for conditional use file CU-2020-01 for property at 9 PTH 52 West. The owner and applicant of the conditional use is Mr. Jung Suk Kang. Purpose of the conditional use application is to allow a caretaker's residence to be situated on the subject property. City of Steinbach zoning bylaw number 2100 defines a caretaker's residence as an accessory dwelling on a non-residential property occupied by the person or family who oversees or guards the operation. The applicant is applying to permit a caretaker's residence within his existing business. Notices that are required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on the file. With respect to the application, should City Council feel the application is appropriate for the neighborhood, it may proceed with approval subject to any information that may be provided at the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Warkentine. Is the applicant here today? Would you like to take the podium and speak? State your name and address, please.
Yeah, Jung Suk Kang. I live in 53 Castle Rock Cove, Steinbach.
Okay.
Then number 9 PTH is on my building. I have to explain to why it's stated. Okay, I have several two or three reasons before. So by the way, thank you inviting me and then explain. Then before the reason is I want to take care of my wife during the work, but my wife, she passed away on May 1st, 4 days ago. Now my business shut down because coronavirus, and then but reopened. But I have a bunch of client in Winnipeg and Steinbach. But in Steinbach it's closed, but in Winnipeg it's still open. And then during the work, I want to stay in my building instead of my house, 53 Castle Rock Cove. because my wife is she's too very sick, and then nobody can take care of my wife. And then I decide when I work in number 9, I'm gonna take care of my wife, but she's passed away. But another reason is economy is very deep down. And then this is second reason. Second reason is I'm gonna sell my house and then move to the building. I'm gonna stay there, only quarter, a small part. And then I have a last son. 2 sons stay in Winnipeg. Last son, grade 9 in SCH school. Then I'm gonna take care with my son. Then I'm gonna stay there. Not big reason. That's it.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, I'm not speaking English very well, but also
Okay, no problem. Just stay at the podium. We're very sorry to hear about your wife, and we give you our condolences. But I'll just ask if council has any questions for you.
okay.
Are there any questions of council for the applicant? Okay, you can take your seat. Thank you. Is there anyone here that has questions or objections to this file? Anyone here that has questions or objections to this file? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here that has questions or objections to this file? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Placeman?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, and Siemens seconder. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Secretary.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the application is quite straightforward. It's to allow a caretaker's residence at an existing business. I think the applicant has spoken clearly in terms of the reasons, and I think it's appropriate that we approve.
Is there anything further, Councilor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I also agree with it. We do have, in the C2 zoning, we do allow residential above commercial development like there is on the south side of Main Street or in that area. So this is not above the commercial, but it is similar enough that I would approve of it.
Okay, is there anything further of council? Is there anything in?
No.
Well, council, we'll go right into the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, council, we'll go now to 6B. This is Variance V-2020-07, referring to 110 PTH 12 North. At this time, we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workentine, can you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, this file, variance application V-2020-07 for property at 110 PTH 12 North. The owner of the property is 100-27732 Manitoba Inc., with the applicant being Lowen Henderson Banman Legault LLP. Purpose of the variance application is to vary the maximum height permitted for residential buildings within the CMX commercial mixed-use zone, where City Zoning Bylaw 2100 requires residential buildings within the CMX zone with a maximum height of 3 stories. The applicant is applying to permit a maximum height of 8 stories for residential buildings within the CMX zone. With respect to the proposed development, Council recently approved a secondary plan under Bylaw 2136 and rezoning under Bylaw 2137 for this property to permit the mixed-use development. The subject parcel is presently vacant land with a mix of vacant highway, commercial, and light industrial uses present on the abutting properties. And the approved secondary plan for this parcel does provide for the development of high-density residential areas that include high-rise residential apartment buildings. Recommendation is for council to approve the variance application subject to any information that may be provided at the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Morgantine. Is the applicant here today? Okay, take the podium, state your name and.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. David Banman, 355 Valerie Lane. I'm here representing the owners. This is a little bit of an interesting, I think we're breaking new ground here with a CMX zoning and a residential component. I know that with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with the commercial component, the maximum height is actually 8 stories. So what we're doing here is we're just asking for the residential component and the commercial component to be the same. I'm not sure if that was a typo that's in the zoning bylaw, why they're considered different, why they should be different, but basically what we're doing here is we're just asking for them to be consistent. To be frank, I don't expect an 8-story building to show up there, but there may be more than 3 stories. It may be a 4-story building, for example, but there can be, I believe it's 8 stories with the commercial sector of the zoning, but not with residential. So what we're doing is just asking that those two be put in congruence.
Council, any questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
Sit down. Is there anyone here with questions or objections to this file? Anyone here with questions or objections to this file? I'll ask one more time. If anyone has questions or objections to this file? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to approve? How would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
Question for administration? Through you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a difference with regards to the commercial and residential aspect in this zoning category?
Yes, actually, the CMX zoning category does permit commercial development to a maximum of 60 feet. However, it does limit residential development to a maximum of 3 stories, which is the same as the RMD zoning district. However, if one looks to the RMX, which is the residential mixed-use zoning category, that mixed-use category actually does in fact allow 85 feet of residential development or height.
Would you like to proceed, Council? Councillor Schweitzer?
I'll make the motion, we approve the variance.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a development that we're quite pleased to see happening, and the request seems to be a reasonable one, that to allow the residential buildings to go above 3 stories in an area that has not been developed yet and is going to be staged in over a number of years. I think it's a very reasonable one. And I think it's great if we have a significant number of people that choose to live in that area, and we want to be able to accommodate that. And so if it turns out that a 4 or 5 story structure is what best fits the market, I think that we should allow it in this case. I think the request is a reasonable one.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No.
Well, Council, I agree with the mover here. I do believe that I think this is a really unique development that's going up, and I also agree with the developer. It would be great to see that the elevations or levels of the buildings to be more equal. I think that's a great idea. So we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, Council, we have no delegations, no reports and recommendations from City Manager, so we'll go to 9A, Accounts Payable at the back of the book. We've all had an opportunity to review. We have a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No.
Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9B, we have the financial statements for January, February, and March of 2020. That's in the back of the book. We've all had a chance to review. Do we have a motion to approve? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we have 9C, the 2019 reserve transfers. It starts on page 22 of your package. Mr. Workedy, could you please introduce this file?
I'll try to be brief. There are many numbers on these 2 pages. However, this is a schedule that administration does provide to council on an annual basis. What this does reflect is a summary of all of the reserve transfers, either coming from the reserve funds into the city's operating funds to fund a variety of projects that the city had budgeted for the year. And it also does reflect transfers from the operating funds to the reserve funds in the event that there has been surpluses, revenues, or other cash inflows that are specifically dedicated to particular projects or are designated for particular reserve funds during the year. The area that is probably of greatest note would be the schedule on page 22 at the top. It's the transfers from the general operating fund to a variety of different reserves as are listed along the left-hand side of that page. Some items you'll note have been estimated in the city's 2019 financial plan and are budgeted for. Others in the actual column are listed with a variety of numbers ranging from several hundred or several $1,000s up to just over $1 million being transferred. Generally, if you look at, for example, there is a proposed transfer of $463,000 and generally to the Capital Development Reserve. And these are for the transportation levies that the city collects from various developments that are initiated throughout the year. That's one example. Further on down in that section, there is also a recommended transfer of $250,000 to the city's committed expenditure reserve. This is to cover the future cost of expected policing expenses that the city is anticipating to incur in future years. And then finally, lastly, in that section, there is also a proposed transfer of $250,000 to the pool reserve, and that is generated by surplus revenues reflected in 2019, and it is being recommended for transfer just due to future anticipated capital improvement projects to be undertaken at the pool. The variety of the other transfer amounts that are listed there, most of these are representing amounts that the city would have budgeted for during the year, specifically capital projects, and those would be transfers that are coming from the city's dedicated reserve funds into the city's operating fund to help pay for these projects. So those are listed in the actual columns. And perhaps I'll just stop right there, and if there are questions from council for specific items that are noted in the schedule, I'd be happy to answer them for you, but if not, a recommendation is that council approve the transfers to and from the designated reserves as noted.
Council, are there any questions for administration? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? Councillor Swagstra?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the city manager noted, this is something that's done every year where there's surplus funds that are reallocated from the general operating fund to various reserves. This is an important thing that we do because it's important that we have the reserves there for future expenses. We know, for example, that the money that we're transferring into the pool reserve, that money will get used because there are major capital upgrades that are going to be happening at the pool. We know that there will be additional policing costs and other items here as well. And then, of course, the other half or 2/3 of what's on these 2 pages are where just reflecting where in the budget we had transferred from reserves into specific spending items. And it's really actually important to take a look at that to see that the reserves it's not just money that sits there unused. We use those reserves. We rely on those reserves. We use the gas tax reserve to the money that's in there from the gas tax to fund our asphalt overlay program. We use the land and building reserve. In this case here, a significant fund went to the operations shop and land purchases and the cemetery expansion. So There's money that comes in and that goes out, and our staff do a good job of making sure that we have an appropriate balance of money being used and also money being put away into the reserves, so that way we can pay for our future bills.
I will just add, yeah, it looks good that the money's going to good cause. It is being spent. I'll agree with Councillor Spikestra. Yes.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No.
Council, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9D, Bylaw 2150, Realty Tax Levy, first reading. That is on page 24. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the bylaw 2150 is the bylaw to authorize the city's levy and collection of realty taxes for 2020. The municipal mill rate that is being proposed according to the city's 2020 financial plan is 13.7 mils. This is a slight reduction as compared to 14.09 mils set in 2019. Recommendation is for council to give the tax levy bylaw first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Worthington. Council, would you like to proceed? Councilor Penner? To approve, okay. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Hebert? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Penner.
This is basically housekeeping. We need to do this every year. We are responsible to collect education taxes, and this is just formalizing that step.
It's nice to see that our mill rate has dropped slightly, and that we're able to meet the expectations of the education and realty tax.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing, Councilor Penner? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to 9E, the bylaw 2151, business tax levy, first reading. That is found on page 48 of your packet. Mr. Worthington, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Similar to the previous bylaw, bylaw 2151 reflects the city's 2020 business tax levy bylaw. The business tax rate is being proposed at 0.5%, as is consistent with prior years. And recommendation is that City Council give this bylaw first reading.
Okay, Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Siemens?
Motion to approve.
Councilor Penner, second. So go ahead, Councilor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The business tax levy has been set at 0.5% again, which it has been probably for the last 11 years, and so it remains unchanged from previous years.
Anything further, Councilor Penner?
Yeah, just to clarify, this is money we collect and then give it to the Chamber of Commerce. We just collect it from businesses. Obviously, it's business tax, and then that goes to the Chamber, and then they use it for both for immigration and also for the Chamber itself, for their operations.
Is there anything further of council? Anything closer, Councilor Siemens? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. That's carried. 9G, that is, so 9F, bylaw 2148. This is first reading. It's on page, starts on page 51 of your package. Mr. Worthington, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This bylaw 2148 is an application for rezoning, and it does apply to property with a civic address of 78 First Street in Steinbach. It is proposing to rezone the subject parcel from RLD residential low density to RMD residential medium density to allow the development of a 10-unit multifamily structure. If council does approve first reading of this rezoning bylaw, a public hearing would be scheduled for what is anticipated right now to be June 16th for the public hearing. Recommendation is to give this bylaw first reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Worthington. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Swagstra.
I'll make the motion for first reading.
and Councillor Penner, seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an application to rezone from RLD to RMD on First Street, and the purpose of first reading is to allow for a public hearing to take place, so that way we can hear from the applicant and from the neighborhood.
Anything further? Anything further of council? Is there anything in closing?
No.
Okay, council will go directly to the question. All those in favor? First reading? That is carried. Okay, we've got 9G. This would be Bylaw 2194, Plan of Works. We're going to be doing second and third reading today. This starts on page 65 of your package. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this bylaw 2149 is a proposed plan of works for the Harmony Lane area development. And what this proposed plan of works is to dedicate a parcel of land to the city for purposes of drainage infrastructure related to this particular phase of the development. Recommendation is that City Council give this bylaw second and third reading.
Okay, council, we've got second reading in front of us. Would like a motion to for second reading? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
As stated by our city administrator, this is this will create a retention pond for the area. So it works well. It's going to do a job functionally, but hopefully it'll also be aesthetically pleasing as well for the area.
Anything further? Anything further of council? Okay. Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. We'll go directly into third reading. Can we have a motion for third reading? Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated before, it's for retention, and hopefully this thing will work out very well. So no reason why not to move ahead.
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? We'll go directly to the question. We'll call for the question. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. 9H, we've got excavator licenses. We're looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Swykstra.
Nothing further.
Any comments? Nothing?
No, it wouldn't be a good one.
Anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After careful review of this file, I feel that they do meet the requirements to get the excavator license, so I think it's appropriate to approve.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Nothing in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, number 10, council question period. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none. We have no correspondence petitions. We have no other business. Need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Spikes, or Siemens. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, council, the next regular meeting will be Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 7:30. And we will recess for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll reconvene here for a in-camera meeting. Thank you.